Hello, my name is John Liu, Flow Ninja, founder of Flow Studio. In this episode 3, I want to talk about what is the relationship with Power Clarity, our new product, and Flow Studio. Flow Studio is our first product, and you can use this by going to flowstudio.app, and then you will sign into Flow Studio with your Microsoft account for your Flow. The first time it will ask you for permission to read your flows on your behalf, and then you will land in a screen that looks similar to this. I actually have quite a lot of flows. I have 526 flows for myself. When I built Flow Studio, mainly it was because I have so many flows that I needed a way to see all my flows, navigate to them quickly, and just to see the general health of my flows. So the spark lines will quickly tell me there's an error in that flow. Most of my flows are green, keeping them healthy and keeping them error free. In this episode, I want to talk about the similarities and also the differences between Flow Studio and Power Clarity, Power Clarity being our second product. To really answer this question, we'll talk about a bit of the technical, but also about the direction or the future of both of these products. In Flow Studio, what we really have is Flow Studio is a browser-based app. It runs purely in your browser using the cookie that you've authenticated, and we borrow that cookie to call Microsoft Flow APIs on your behalf. So when you use Flow Studio, it's almost like you're using SQL Management Studio and connecting to a database server. So you connect using your credentials, and then you can see all the objects within that database server. So if you think of Flow as that database server, then Flow Studio is your SQL Management Studio that you can use to connect, to administer, to see all the different assets, to even migrate them around or to check for errors and so on. So that's what Flow Studio does for a single account. Now, there are things that Flow Studio cannot do because Flow Studio runs under one account. Flow Studio, for example, cannot read objects that belong to two accounts at the same time because your browser can only handle one account. Flow Studio also needs to take time to scan. Every time you go back to your flows, it will try to scan everything. If say you have 50 flows, that scan will happen pretty quickly. But if you have 500 flows, or if you're running as admin, and your account has the ability to see everyone's flows within the environment, the admin view may take some time. Now imagine everyone on average makes 10 flows, and you have 500 people in your organization. In the default tenant, you are potentially thinking about 5,000 flows that Flow Studio will have to go and read. And that could take some time. So, but also if you have 500 users making 10 flows each, you really need a tool like Flow Studio to help you go in and check regularly. So it's a scale problem, but it's a necessary problem as well. A lot of this thinking is the reason why we thought, well, let's put some of that scanning into a server. Let's use a server with a full database to cache all the metadata that we are scanning from our Flow and Power apps. So that is the origin of really where Power Clarity is. Power Clarity looks similar at a glance that, it's got the same type of grids. John, you've even put in the similar menu here. But there are some quick differences that we can see. Firstly, Power Clarity can see Power Apps. Flow Studio is very much focused on Flow only, but Power Clarity could see Flows and Power Apps. We've been doing some work this last 2 weeks, lighting up the events, which is our backend source regarding all the Flow runs, all the Power Apps sharing, and also other events that are happening within this platform. So we intend that there will be this big grid of all the events that we can catch, all aggregated here. And then we will move on to work out the makers view and then the connections view, and then top it with the overview. So some of the overview summaries, we'll put that up, and then we'll complete at least a first pass of all the left-hand side features. Now, in Power Clarity, our intention is that Power Clarity is able to use one or many service accounts to basically scan every part of your environment. So you can use an account that could have lots of permissions to see different environments, but you can also use multiple accounts, each one having the environment admin for a specific environment, and you can use that to spread out the scanning process. So Power Clarity uses all that to pull all the flows back together, and then it is able to basically keep scanning all these environments. So Power Clarity does not require you to run this. So you will use Power Clarity to set up your policies and maybe set up your alerts, but you don't actually need to have Power Clarity running. The sending will continue to work, and it is able to directly send you an email summary, or when it detects a flow has failed. In this case, let's have a look. We've picked up a few flow failures in the last, that's in the last 7 days. So it's able to, when it sees a flow has failed, it's able to pick out the error messages from that flow and then send them directly into, put it in a nice email and send them to you. Well, as nice as an error message could be, it's a very detailed email. But we can also use that to call your flow. So if you wanted to, you could set up a flow that receives these error reports, and then you could send that into your ServiceNow. So if you have an external system to track that, or if you have an external system that takes a webhook, you can have this array sent into that webhook. So these are the various things that we can do from this point onwards. So you have far more control over monitoring your flows and monitoring your apps and monitoring various events that are happening in the Power Platform. So in terms of the future, where we're going, both products are continuing forward. We have no intention of stopping work on Flow Studio. That is not the case. Someone has asked me, John, you're working on Power Clarity, what's happening with Flow Studio? So I just wanted to say there are no intention of stopping work on either side. As you can see, there are some similarities between the UI, and some of the features from Flow Studio, from the UI side, will come over to Clarity. But Clarity also scans, because it's able to offload the scanning to a separate server-based agent, it is able to scan a lot deeper and a lot. It could take its time to do individual scanning, whereas Flow Studio has to try to scan your environment quickly to give you something to look at. So Flow Studio scanning will not be as deep as Power Clarity, but Flow Studio will still be maintained and will be very functional going forward. We see Flow Studio targeted towards that individual user. So if you're that individual maker and you have your own flows, Flow Studio is very much targeted at the maker level. Power Clarity is targeted at the IT level and the governance level, where we're thinking about how do we put in some policies, or how do we put in some workflows around the governance of our entire Power Platform, or also how do we monitor all these assets and whether they are successful or they're erring. So Power Clarity sees the whole world from IT and the backend's angle. Its aim is that IT may not understand what these flows are, but they need to have some way of seeing how these flows and Power Apps can be supported. And that may be just the error will be redirected back to the maker. So the maker will have to work on reducing the errors or fixing these errors. So that's where the two products are targeted. There are going to be UIs that are going to be shared. So they will be shared on both sides. Learn from Flow Studio, we are able to use in Power Clarity. And what we learn in Power Clarity, we can move that back to Flow Studio. Some of the very advanced features, such as Flow Studio's Migrate feature. Imagine Migrate now requires an active user, you, to go and activate the migration plan. Migrate can be used in Clarity, and because Clarity is able to run everything with a cache credential, Clarity is able to do migrate on an API call. So it's almost like a CI/CD server where you can tell Clarity to move your flows around and copy them around. So very exciting where these two products will expand and grow, and there are some overlaps, but I generally see it as if you're the individual maker or maybe a small, medium company, you might find that Flow Studio is a good place to start. If you're medium to large or medium to enterprise, then you may find that your concerns more covered with Power Clarity. And we want to cover that whole spectrum. You may be an individual maker or a single admin, and you just want to automate the entire monitoring and governance side of your Power Platform. So you can also still choose to have a look at Power Clarity and how that fits your needs. So we hope to pen this picture. This is kind of the rough skeleton of the two pictures we want to pen, and we will pen them at the same time, and you will see these two paintings come together. They are very complementary, and there is a lot of there's quite a bit of overlap as we work on these two products. So it's good. It's not as if we spend time on one product and that time is not useful to the other product. So that's definitely not the case. So I'll leave you at that. This is episode 3, which is comparing Flow Studio and Power Clarity. If you're interested in Power Clarity, you should go to our trial. We have a link down below to request a trial of Power Clarity and see how that works right now, and whether we are looking for pilot companies to co-create Power Clarity with us. So if you're thinking of building a governance dashboard and you're in the middle of trying to build one, we want to show you that Power Clarity is a much cheaper and very quick way of having a turnkey governance solution set up. So we want to build this with you and show you what we can do with all this clarity around our Power Platform. So please like and subscribe my channel, and sign up to the trial for Power Clarity. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!